Are our gestures merely recent conventions that we've learnt from one another? Or are some inherited from our remote ancestors? Did upright man formulate his hunting plans by pointing and nodding and express his delight with a smile? If we could meet modern men who have never been in contact with our world and discover whether we both had signals in common, then we might find clues to the answer. 10 years ago, I had the chance to do just that. A patrol, led by an Australian government officer, was setting out to cross one of the last patches of unexplored country in central New Guinea, and I went with it. The tribesmen living on the river who came with us said that there were people living in these dense forests, that they saw them only rarely and knew only one word of their language, their name, Biami. But no European had ever seen them. Biami! We walked for about a week without meeting anyone, and then one morning the Biami quietly appeared. With gestures, they seemed to be explaining that we were in the middle of their territory. They nodded in agreement. They smiled to give reassurance.
They're married too? Married, Pickaninny too?
We wanted them to bring down other members of their group and tried to convey this somewhat complicated message with gestures.
M. I think... Lalu. Lalu now. Picaro ikam.
Lalu ikam.
Picaro ikam.
Picaro ikam.
They you go Picaro ikam.
Yala. Lalu. Picaro.
Although our two societies were so different and had never come into contact before this moment, it seemed that many of our gestures did have the same meaning. These nods and smiles, frowns and headshakes were surely not mere conventions, but deep in us. It seemed that they used the same name for their rivers as the tribesmen who were with us, and their leader counted them for us. To do that, he used a quite different category of gesture, not a deep-seated one like a nod or a smile, but a conventional one that has been learned. And here our cultural backgrounds divided us. He used the fingers of one hand for numbers up to 5. Above 5, the Biami clearly have their own individual code. It's easy enough to follow it in sequence like this, but the Biami also use these gestures individually, in bargaining, for example. And then how would we know that this gesture meant 8? Or this one, 9. But before he got to 11, he used 2 of those facial expressions that were immediately understandable to us both. Bafflement, because we got the name slightly wrong, and amusement at our stupidity. Although we belonged to such different societies, and the only words we had in common were a few proper nouns, we had exchanged quite complicated messages using just gestures inherited from our common past. Gestures that may well have been used before even the emergence of our own species by our distant ancestors, upright man.